Hey everyone, welcome back to this series on the different classics that we've been looking at. Today I'm responding to several short works by Friedrich Nietzsche. Those are On Truth and Lie in an Extra Moral Sense, Human, All Too Human, The Gay Science, Beyond Good and Evil, The Genealogy of Morals, and The Twilight of Idols. These writings came from his late 19th century philosophical period. They're part cultural critique, part philosophy, part learn about morality, part poetic rant in a way. His style is very sharp, very witty, and honestly provocative at times, almost like he's trying to start an argument with the reader themselves. And across these readings, he's questioning things like truth, the meaning of morality, and honestly the foundation of Christian values at their core. Overall, these pieces ask questions like, where do our beliefs come from and our morals objective? He even asks, is Christianity life-giving or life-defying? He argues that the traditional morality, especially Christian morality, was built by humans, not revealed by God, and it often suppresses human strength and their ability to think creatively for themselves. The kind of questions he's raising are, like I said, philosophical, moral, psychological, and theology based. And he makes very bold claims, several very bold claims, but I'm going to focus on four of them. One, he says that truth is a human invention. In his work on Truth and Lie, he argues that what we call truth is just a set of almost metaphors that we've forgotten are metaphors, or were something that was given to us by somebody else and we never looked back and thought about them. The second claim is that morality is a power construction. In Human, All Too Human, and later in the Genealogy of Morals, he says that moral values come from social power dynamics, not from God or absolute truths. And number three, Christianity is a slave morality. He thinks that Christian virtues like humility, forgiveness, compassion were created by the weak to restrain the strong and keep them from moving up, so to say, or having control over them. And then four, we should move beyond good and evil. Instead of following inherited rules, he says that the strong should create their own virtues and basically control whatever they want to do. He's using psychological reasoning and trying to reinterpret things that were going on at the time to try to make his point. And he doesn't even build like a step-by-step argument. He just exposes motives behind certain beliefs. However, from a Christian perspective, the writings in themselves were unsettling. But at the same time, what made them the most unsettling was that they were strangely helpful in a way, but not in the way that I think he was hoping for. His critiques forces Christians to examine whether they truly live out what they claim to believe, or if they're doing the whole, oh, I'm a Christian on Sundays but not on Mondays type of situation. For example, like when he exposes religious hypocrisy, Jesus himself did the same thing in Matthew 23. So some of the strengths are that, he was right that people sometimes use religion manipulatively to try to control people to behave a certain way that they want them to. He was also right that Christians can fall into an empty rule following, like described in Isaiah 29:13. He was right that pride can hide under humility. And he was also right that our motives matter in 1 Samuel 16:7 when he says that, people look at the outward appearance while he looks at the heart and the motives of the heart. So his psychological insights, unfortunately, are accurate to an extent, but his worldview has serious problems for me. One, he assumes God does not exist. His entire critique of morality depends on God not being real. But if God is real, then his whole argument collapses in a way. Scripture repeatedly says truth is grounded not in human thoughts, but in God. Like, John 14:6 and Psalms 119:160. Point number 2, he misunderstands Christian virtues. He thinks that humility and mercy make people weak, but biblically speaking, humility is strength. Philippians 2:5-11 really describes this. Also, mercy triumphs over judgment, like described in James 2:13. And sacrificial love is the highest virtue, like John 15:13 says. Christ went to the cross willingly, not out of resentment, but out of love for us. Point number 3, creativity cannot replace objective morality. If everyone makes their own virtues, then why do we condemn injustice? Why do we call cruelty wrong? Why stop the strong from overpowering the weak? Who's right, who's wrong? Because if someone says stealing is wrong, but then the other person says stealing is right if you're doing it to survive, how do you choose what to justify in those moments? Scripture grounds that we are made in the image of God in Genesis 1:27, but he grounds it in the will to power. And that difference really leads to different worlds. And then point number 4, his method, I should say, explains away everything, or at least he tries to. His genealogy claims that all morals come from hidden motives, mostly resentment. But this is honestly false. What he's saying is that if love is real, we're to call it power. If humility is real, we're to call it resentment. If goodness is real, we're to call it illusion. It becomes impossible with his little system to love God with a pure heart like we're asked to in Matthew 5:8. He just doesn't allow that category to exist. And ultimately, in the end, he's arguing that, all of this is created by human thoughts and can't hold power, yet he himself is creating something from human thoughts, trying to hold power there. So the two questions that kind of linger with me after reading this are, 1, if morality is just power and illusion, then how can he claim that power or strength is better than weakness? Isn't that just his own value system, the one that he invented, and why should anybody else follow it? And then 2, if truth is just human made, then why trust his own claims as truthful? If all beliefs are illusions, then his philosophy becomes just another illusion with no authority over anything else. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.